Think Ghana is just about gold mining and cocoa farms? You won't believe what I'm about to tell you. Wait until you find out about funerals that cost more than weddings, a country where pointing with your finger can get you in serious trouble, and fantasy coffins shaped like airplanes and fish that'll blow your mind. Number 15. Ghana's funerals are more expensive than most people's weddings and can bankrupt entire families. You heard right. In Ghana, saying goodbye to the dead isn't just emotional, it's financially devastating. The average Ghanaian funeral can take weeks or months to plan, and it's not uncommon for families to go into huge debts to finance these expensive ceremonies. We're talking about celebrations that cost between $5,000 to $30,000, which is more than most Ghanaians make in 3 years. Picture this. Entire extended families pooling money together, selling livestock and borrowing from multiple sources just to give grandma a proper send-off. The pressure is so intense that some families have been known to delay funerals for months, not out of grief, but because they're frantically trying to raise enough cash. These ceremonies can last up to 7 days and draw thousands of people, and the host family is expected to feed everyone, provide entertainment, and ensure the event reflects the deceased's social status. Think American weddings are expensive? Think again. Ghanaian funerals make them look like budget picnics. Number 14. Pointing at people with your finger in Ghana is considered so offensive it's like giving someone the middle finger in America. Pointing at people is considered rude, as is the thumbs up sign. And trust me, tourists learn this the hard way. Instead, Ghanaians point with their lips. Yes, you heard that right, they pucker up and gesture with their entire mouth toward whatever they want to indicate. Imagine trying to give directions by kissing the air in different directions. The cultural shock runs so deep that many Ghanaians who move abroad have to consciously retrain themselves not to take offense when foreigners point at them directly. If you accidentally point at an elder or traditional chief, the embarrassment and social consequences can be severe. The origins trace back to traditional beliefs that pointing channels negative energy toward the person, essentially cursing them. Here's the funny part. While you can't point with your finger, using your entire hand in a gentle gesture is perfectly acceptable. So next time you're in Ghana, keep those index fingers to yourself and start practicing your lip pointing skills. You'll need them. Number 13. Ghana has fantasy coffins that cost up to $3,000 and are shaped like everything from airplanes to giant fish. These elaborate, personalized coffins are often shaped to represent an item or occupation important to the deceased. For instance, a fisherman might be buried in a coffin shaped like a fish, but that's just the beginning of this wild tradition. We're talking about coffins shaped like cars, airplanes, cell phones, beer bottles, and even designer handbags. Master craftsmen spend weeks carving these artistic masterpieces, with the most intricate designs commanding prices that exceed many people's annual salaries. Picture this. A deceased pilot being lowered into the ground inside a perfectly crafted replica of a Boeing 737, complete with windows and airline livery. The tradition started in the 1950s and has become so popular that these coffins are now displayed in international art museums. But here's where it gets interesting. The choice of coffin shape isn't random. A person buried in a lion-shaped coffin is believed to possess the lion's strength in the afterlife, while someone in a fish coffin will never lack food in the spiritual realm. The irony? Some families spend more on these fantasy coffins than they do on healthcare for the living. Number 12. In Ghana, using your left hand for anything is considered deeply offensive and can immediately mark you as disrespectful. The left hand is universally regarded as offensive. Never pass anything with your left hand. Always use your right hand to convey or receive anything. This isn't just about politeness, it's rooted in traditional beliefs about cleanliness and spirituality. The left hand is associated with bathroom activities and is considered spiritually unclean, so using it to greet someone, pass food, or exchange money is like insulting their very essence. Sounds unbelievable, but left-handed children traditionally undergo intensive training to use their right hand for social interactions, even if it feels completely unnatural. Business cards, handshakes, receiving gifts, eating, everything must be done with the right hand. Foreign diplomats and business people have accidentally destroyed relationships by extending their left hand during important meetings. The cultural shock is so intense that many Ghanaians traveling abroad feel genuinely disturbed when they see people freely using their left hands in social situations. Here's the scary part. In traditional settings, using your left hand can be interpreted as deliberately showing disrespect, potentially leading to social ostracism or conflict. Number 11. Ghana is home to one of the world's few remaining matrilineal societies where inheritance flows through women, not men. The Akan people are one of the few matrilineal societies in West Africa. The Akan matrilineal system continues to be economically significant, completely flipping everything you think you know about African patriarchal traditions. In this system, children belong to their mother's family, and when a man dies, his wealth goes to his sister's children, not his own biological children. Picture this scenario. A wealthy Ghanaian businessman spends his entire life building an empire, but when he passes away, his own sons inherit nothing while his nephew, his sister's son, gets everything. This creates fascinating family dynamics where a man's relationship with his sister's children is often stronger than with his own offspring. Women hold incredible power in family decision-making, property ownership, and even in selecting traditional chiefs. The system has protected women's economic rights for centuries, long before Western feminism existed. But here's where it gets complicated. Modern Ghana operates under both traditional matrilineal law and contemporary legal systems, creating complex inheritance battles that can tear families apart. Some families have adapted by creating wills that satisfy both systems, while others face bitter court battles that last for decades. Number 10. Traditional Ghanaian chiefs are treated like living gods and their subjects must prostrate themselves on the ground just to speak with them. Traditional Akan chiefs and kings are formally invested with quasi-religious status. Their subjects must greet them by prostrating themselves and may talk to them only indirectly through the chief's linguist. We're talking about a level of reverence that makes European royal protocols look casual. When approaching a traditional chief, you must remove your shoes, lower yourself completely to the ground, and remain prostrated while speaking. But here's the wild part. You can't even speak directly to the chief. Everything must go through an intermediary called a linguist who translates your words, even if everyone speaks the same language. This isn't just ceremony. It's believed that the chief's power is so spiritually intense that direct contact could harm ordinary people. The chief sits on sacred stools that are considered the embodiment of ancestral spirits, and these stools are more valuable than gold. Some chiefs have never been photographed because traditional beliefs hold that capturing their image could weaken their spiritual power. Modern Ghana operates with both elected officials and traditional chiefs, creating a fascinating dual power structure where a village might have a democratically elected assembly member alongside a centuries-old traditional ruler who commands deeper respect and loyalty from the people. The contrast is mind-blowing. You can walk up to Ghana's president for a casual chat, but approaching a traditional chief requires elaborate rituals that haven't changed for centuries. Number 9. Ghana has an entire region where 90% of marriages are arranged, and love marriages are considered risky and irresponsible. In the northern regions, particularly among traditional communities, arranged marriages aren't just common. They're the overwhelming norm, and families view Western-style romantic marriages with deep suspicion. Parents begin negotiations when children are as young as 12, with the actual marriage ceremony taking place years later. The matchmaking process involves detailed investigations into family histories, checking for genetic compatibility, examining economic prospects, and consulting traditional priests to ensure spiritual alignment. Here's what'll blow your mind. These arranged marriages have a divorce rate of less than 5%, compared to over 50% for love marriages in urban areas. The system works because families invest enormous resources in ensuring compatibility, and both spouses enter the relationship with realistic expectations rather than Hollywood romantic fantasies. But there's a dark side. Young women often have zero say in their partner selection, and refusing an arranged marriage can lead to complete social ostracism. The bride price negotiations can last months, with families exchanging cattle, land, and substantial cash payments that sometimes exceed $10,000. Modern education is slowly changing these traditions, but in remote areas, a 16-year-old girl choosing her own husband is still seen as scandalous and potentially dangerous to family honor. Number 8. Ghana has luxury funeral homes where families rent elaborate decorations, professional mourners, and even live bands for deceased relatives. The funeral industry in Ghana is a multi-million-dollar business that puts American funeral homes to shame in terms of sheer extravagance and social pressure. Professional mourning has become an actual career, where skilled wailers are hired to cry dramatically and ensure the deceased gets a proper emotional send-off. These professional mourners can earn $200 to $500 per funeral, making it a lucrative side hustle for women with theatrical talents. Funeral rental companies provide everything from ornate tents and golden chairs to elaborate flower arrangements and sound systems that can be heard for miles. The competition between families is so intense that funeral organizers now offer packages ranging from standard farewell at $3,000 to royal departure at $25,000, complete with uniformed pallbearers, professional photographers, and even helicopter flyovers for the ultra-wealthy. Some families hire multiple bands, traditional drummers, contemporary gospel choirs, and modern DJs, creating musical experiences that rival major concerts. The social pressure is enormous. Showing up to a rival family's funeral with a modest ceremony is considered a public declaration of poverty and low status. Here's the bizarre part. Some families spend more on a 3-day funeral than they spent on the deceased's healthcare during their entire lifetime, leading to a twisted economy where death is more valuable than life. Number 7. In Ghana's traditional villages, there are sacred groves where entering without permission can result in death sentences carried out by mysterious traditional executioners. These aren't tourist attractions or folklore. We're talking about actual sacred forests scattered throughout Ghana, where traditional law still supersedes national law, and the consequences for trespassing can be lethal. The sacred groves are believed to house powerful ancestral spirits and deities, and unauthorized entry is considered spiritual contamination that threatens entire communities. Traditional priests, called fetish priests, guard these areas with deadly seriousness, and local police often refuse to intervene in disputes involving sacred grove violations. The enforcement mechanisms are terrifying. Suspected violators face traditional courts where penalties can include banishment, massive financial compensation, or in extreme cases, execution by poisoning or ritual drowning. Modern Ghana's legal system technically prohibits these practices, but in remote areas, traditional authority often overrides government control. Anthropologists have documented cases where entire families were forced to flee their villages after accidentally violating sacred grove boundaries during farming or hunting activities. The psychological terror is immense. Many Ghanaians would rather face a modern court for serious crimes than be tried by traditional authorities for sacred grove violations. Here's the most chilling part. These sacred groves are unmarked and constantly shifting based on spiritual revelations, meaning innocent travelers can stumble into death trap situations without any warning or understanding of what they've violated. Number 6. In Ghana, there are widow inheritance practices where women are required to marry their deceased husband's relatives, or else, they face complete social and economic destruction. Even though the government officially discourages this, widow inheritance is still widespread, especially in rural areas, and honestly, it creates a nightmare scenario. Imagine a woman's husband's death instantly turning her from a wife into property to be distributed among male relatives. The roots of this practice go deep. Traditional beliefs hold that a woman just can't exist independently and must always belong to a male family member for both spiritual protection and economic survival. So, when a husband passes away, his widow faces a truly devastating choice. She can marry his brother, cousin, or another designated male relative, or lose all access to land, property, her own children, and any kind of social support. The rituals involved are, psychologically traumatic. There are cleansing ceremonies where the widow must sleep with her new husband immediately after her previous husband's burial, supposedly to transfer spiritual protection. Women who refuse face systematic persecution. Their children are taken away, they're denied access to family land for farming, and they're basically cut off from the community as if they're spiritually dangerous. Modern human rights organizations estimate that over 30,000 Ghanaian widows currently live in extreme poverty specifically because they refused these inheritance arrangements. The economic reality is harsh. Accepting widow inheritance usually means guaranteed housing and food, while resisting often leads to homelessness and total destitution. Legal reforms have been tried, but traditional authorities in remote areas still enforce these practices with impunity, so, in effect, there's a parallel legal system where women's rights just don't exist. Number 5. Ghana actually operates a dual currency system where traditional cowrie shells are still legal tender in some regions and can buy real goods at local markets. Yeah, you heard that right. While the official currency is the CDI, ancient cowrie shells remain accepted payment in traditional markets across the northern regions, creating one of the world's most bizarre economic systems. And these aren't collector's items or tourist gimmicks. We're talking about actual commercial transactions where vendors accept cowrie shells for food, clothing, and services right alongside modern paper money. The shell-to-cedi exchange rate, believe it or not, fluctuates daily based on local supply and demand, with roughly 50 to 100 cowrie shells equaling 1 Ghana cedi, depending on where you are and the time of year. Traditional medicine practitioners, for instance, exclusively accept cowrie shells for certain spiritual services, since many believe that paper money carries negative spiritual energy that interferes with healing rituals. The shells themselves are sourced from specific coastal regions and have to meet traditional quality standards. Size, color, and spiritual cleanliness all affect their value. Modern banking systems completely ignore cowrie transactions, so this creates a shadow economy that operates outside government taxation and regulation. International economists are fascinated by this dual system because it really shows how traditional monetary systems can coexist with modern capitalism. And here's the mind-blowing part. Some rural Ghanaians are actually wealthier in cowrie shells than in cedis, holding thousands of shells that have real purchasing power in their communities, but would be worthless in Accra or international markets. Young entrepreneurs have even started currency arbitrage businesses, buying cowrie shells cheaply in coastal areas and selling them at premium prices up north, where demand is highest. Number 4. Ghana has professional funeral dancers, known as fantasy dancers, who can earn up to $1,000 per performance and are booked months in advance, just like major celebrities. The funeral dancing industry in Ghana is, honestly, so sophisticated and lucrative that top performers have agents, social media followings, and waiting lists stretching for months during peak funeral season. And these are not amateur mourners just swaying to music. These are highly trained professional dancers performing elaborate choreographed routines that can last for hours, each one specifically tailored to honor the deceased's life story, profession, and social status. The most famous fantasy dancers command fees that actually exceed what many Ghanaian professionals earn in 6 months. Legendary performers like Queen Hagar and the Dancing Pallbearers have become internet sensations and even earned international recognition. Their performances are truly theatrical masterpieces, blending traditional Ghanaian dance moves with modern choreography, acrobatic stunts, and dramatic storytelling that can move audiences to both tears and celebration at the same time. The competition is fierce. Dancers train for years to perfect their craft, develop signature moves, and build reputations that directly affect their earning potential. Booking a top-tier fantasy dancer troupe requires deposits, contracts, and negotiations that honestly rival hiring major entertainers for concerts or weddings. The cultural significance goes way beyond entertainment. These dancers are believed to help guide the deceased spirit to the afterlife while celebrating their earthly accomplishments in a way that brings joy, not just sorrow. Some families even spend more on fantasy dancers than on the actual burial ceremony, seeing the performance as the most important part of the entire funeral process. Number 3. Ghana has traditional priests who can legally marry couples, grant divorces, and settle property disputes with the same authority as government courts. The country operates under a fascinating dual legal system, where traditional religious authorities wield genuine judicial power that's recognized and enforced by the national government, creating scenarios where ancient spiritual practices carry the same weight as modern law. These traditional priests, known as fetish priests or traditional healers, undergo decades of training in customary law, spiritual practices, and conflict resolution techniques that have been passed down through centuries of oral tradition. Their courts handle everything from marriage disputes and inheritance battles to criminal cases involving theft, adultery, and even murder, with decisions that are legally binding and enforceable through both traditional and modern police systems. The procedures are otherworldly. Priests consult ancestral spirits through trance states, use divination methods involving shells and sacred objects, and issue judgments that defendants believe carry spiritual consequences beyond earthly punishment. What's truly mind-blowing is that many Ghanaians prefer traditional courts over government courts because they're faster, cheaper, and viewed as more spiritually legitimate than Western-style legal proceedings. A traditional priest can grant a divorce in one afternoon that might take government courts months to process, and their property settlements are often honored more readily than official court orders. The system creates bizarre situations where modern lawyers sometimes advise clients to seek traditional spiritual resolution before pursuing conventional legal remedies, and international human rights organizations struggle to navigate a legal framework where ancient spiritual beliefs have concrete legal consequences in the 21st century. Number 2. Ghana has villages where menstruating women are banished to isolated huts and forbidden from touching food, water, or other people for up to 7 days each month. Despite government campaigns to end these practices, menstrual banishment remains widespread across northern Ghana, creating a monthly nightmare for women and girls that combines health dangers, social isolation, and psychological trauma into one devastating cycle. These menstrual huts are deliberately built away from main villages, often lacking proper sanitation, clean water, or protection from weather and wild animals, forcing women to endure conditions that would be considered torture in any other context. The traditional beliefs underlying this practice are terrifying. Menstruating women are considered spiritually contaminated and dangerous to community well-being, capable of causing crop failures, livestock deaths, and spiritual disasters simply through their presence. Women must announce their menstrual cycles publicly, submit to inspections by elderly female relatives, and follow elaborate purification rituals before being allowed back into normal society, creating monthly humiliation cycles that destroy self-esteem and educational opportunities. Girls frequently drop out of school permanently, rather than face the monthly shame and practical impossibility of maintaining academic attendance while being banished for a week every month. The health consequences are catastrophic. Snake bites, respiratory infections, malnutrition, and deaths from exposure are documented regularly, with at least 15 to 20 women dying annually from conditions directly related to menstrual banishment practices. Modern medical professionals and human rights activists have launched intensive education campaigns, but traditional beliefs run so deep that many women genuinely believe they pose supernatural threats to their communities during menstruation, making this one of the most persistent and tragic examples of how ancient superstitions can create ongoing human rights disasters in contemporary Africa. Number 1. Ghana has the world's most expensive funerary tradition where families regularly spend more than $50,000 on single funeral ceremonies, often borrowing against their homes and selling everything they own to avoid social disgrace. This isn't just about honoring the dead, it's about maintaining social status in a culture where funeral expenditure is viewed as the ultimate measure of family success, love, and respectability, creating an economic death spiral that destroys living families in the name of properly honoring deceased relatives. The pressure is so intense that families will mortgage their homes, sell their land, liquidate their children's educational funds, and borrow money at crushing interest rates rather than risk the social humiliation of hosting a cheap funeral that might be interpreted as evidence of poverty, family dysfunction, or lack of love for the deceased. We're talking about ceremonies that include hiring professional catering companies to feed thousands of guests for multiple days, renting elaborate tents and decorations that rival royal weddings, commissioning custom fantasy coffins that cost more than luxury cars, hiring multiple live bands and entertainment troupes, and providing open bars with premium imported alcohol that flows like water for days on end. The competitive element is absolutely ruthless. Families monitor each other's funeral expenses and judge social standing based on the level of extravagance displayed, creating arms races where each funeral must exceed the previous one in cost and spectacle or risk family shame that can last for generations. The economic devastation is staggering. Entire extended families can be plunged into debt for decades following a single major funeral, with children denied educational opportunities and families forced into poverty to service loans taken out for funeral expenses. International development economists have identified Ghanaian funeral culture as one of the primary obstacles to economic development because it systematically diverts capital away from productive investments like education, healthcare, and business development into elaborate death celebrations that provide no economic return while impoverishing the living. So we've just discovered Ghana's most shocking cultural secrets, from bankruptcy-inducing funerals to fantasy coffins, from sacred death forests to menstrual banishments that would horrify modern societies. Which one shocked you the most? Have you ever experienced anything this extreme in your own culture? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing cultural discoveries that'll completely change how you see the world.